There are many people walking through life without truly knowing what they are worth. They measure their value by the reactions of others, by the attention they receive, by the approval that may or may not be given to them. This is a dangerous way to live because it places the most important truth of your life, your own value, in the hands of strangers. When you do not have clarity of your own worth, you will constantly seek it outside yourself. You will find yourself bending to please those who do not even care for your well-being. You will accept situations that are far beneath your potential because you do not believe there is more for you. And the most subtle danger of all is this: you will begin to confuse being wanted with being worthy. These two things are not the same. Clarity of self-worth begins with an internal recognition, one that is not dependent on external confirmation. It is a quiet but unshakable understanding that your value is inherent, not something that needs to be earned through performance or appearance. When this clarity is missing, your life will always be vulnerable to the storms of other people's opinions. But when it is present, you become anchored. You can receive criticism without crumbling, and you can receive praise without losing yourself in the glow of it. Imagine for a moment that you are holding a rare piece of art. You know its worth because you have studied its history, you have seen its craftsmanship, and you understand that it is one of a kind. If someone came to you and said, "This is worthless," you would simply smile because their ignorance does not change the truth. And if someone came to you and offered endless compliments, you would still know that your recognition of its worth existed long before they spoke. This is what clarity of self-worth feels like: knowing before being told, understanding before being recognized. But how do you build this clarity? It is not given to you at birth in a form that is unchangeable. It is something that must be cultivated, often through discomfort. You build it by paying attention to what you accept into your life and what you reject. You build it by becoming deeply aware of your own patterns. When you speak just to be liked, when you say yes because you fear being left out, when you lower your standards because you think your standards are too high. Each of these moments is a signal that your self-worth needs sharpening. Clarity is the opposite of confusion. Many people live in confusion about their worth because they have never separated the voice of their own truth from the noise of the world. From a young age, we are bombarded with messages telling us what we must look like, achieve, or acquire in order to be valuable. If you do not stop to question these messages, you will carry them into adulthood, chasing shadows instead of living in your own light. Clarity comes when you are willing to strip away what is not truly yours and stand bare in your own identity. This does not mean arrogance. Arrogance is loud and insecure. Clarity is calm and certain. Arrogance demands attention. Clarity does not need it. The woman who is clear about her worth will not need to announce it to every room she enters. Her presence communicates it without words. There is no performance, no constant display of proof. There is simply an aura of self-respect that guides her behavior. One of the greatest signs that someone has clarity of self-worth is how they handle rejection. When you are unclear about your worth, rejection feels like a verdict against your entire being. It is as though the world has confirmed your deepest fear, that you are not enough. But when you are clear, rejection becomes information, not identity. It is simply a sign that the opportunity, relationship, or path was not aligned with your value. You do not crumble, you redirect. Clarity of self-worth also shapes the way you handle relationships. Without it, you might cling to people who treat you poorly because you think they are your only option. You might overgive, hoping to earn love by proving your loyalty. But with clarity, your relationships are balanced. You give without losing yourself. You love without abandoning your standards. You can walk away from disrespect without needing to announce it because you know that the loss is not yours. This clarity is not static. It must be maintained. Just like a crystal can collect dust over time, your understanding of your worth can become clouded if you stop taking care of it. You must protect it through regular self-reflection, through keeping promises to yourself, through surrounding yourself with people who do not just flatter you, but respect you. One of the deepest truths about self-worth is that it is not tied to what you achieve. Achievement can enhance your life, but it cannot create your value. If it could, then losing a job, failing a project, or aging would mean losing worth. But this is not so. The truth is that your worth remains the same through every season of your life. The only thing that changes is your awareness of it. When you finally understand this, you stop chasing recognition and start choosing alignment. You stop asking, am I enough for them? And start asking, are they enough for me? This shift changes everything. Your decisions become cleaner, your energy becomes stronger, and your life becomes lighter because you are no longer carrying the burden of proving yourself. Some may mistake this clarity for coldness, but it is not cold. It is warm, but in a way that does not burn itself out to keep others comfortable. It is generous, but not at the expense of dignity. It is loving, but with boundaries that protect both the giver and the receiver. And here lies the paradox: the clearer you are about your worth, the less you will need to talk about it. Yet the more it will be felt by everyone around you. It becomes part of your presence, in the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you choose where to place your time and your heart. There is a temptation that visits every person. The temptation to live according to how they feel in the moment. If the mood is good, the effort comes easily. If the mood is low, the commitment fades. It is natural to feel this way, but if you build your life around moods, you will build a life without structure, without reliability, without the consistency that success and inner peace demand. Discipline over mood is the decision to honor your commitments, even when your emotions are pulling you in a different direction. It is the refusal to negotiate with yourself when the time comes to act. The disciplined person does not wait for motivation to appear. They move first and let motivation catch up later. The mind loves comfort, and it will often create excuses disguised as logic. You deserve a break. You can start tomorrow. You are not in the right state to do it now. But if you listen to these voices often enough, you will build the habit of surrendering to them. And every time you surrender, the habit of quitting becomes stronger. The one who chooses discipline over mood has learned that feelings are temporary, but results are lasting. They understand that a moment of resistance is not a signal to stop, but a signal to strengthen their resolve. When the mood says, skip your training today, discipline says, show up anyway. When the mood says, delay that difficult conversation, discipline says, address it now before it grows into something heavier. This is not about forcing yourself into constant struggle. It is about mastering the self to such a degree that moods lose their control over you. There is a great freedom in this mastery. Imagine a ship guided not by the unpredictable winds, but by a steady compass. The winds will still blow, sometimes in your favor, sometimes against you, but your course will remain true because you have learned to steer regardless of the weather. To place discipline over mood is to develop a deep respect for your own word. It means that when you tell yourself you will do something, you treat that as a binding agreement, the same as if you had signed a contract. If you break your own word repeatedly, it becomes harder to trust yourself, and without self-trust, life loses its foundation. But each time you keep your word, especially when you don't feel like it, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. There is also an emotional strength that comes from this practice. The undisciplined mind is a prisoner of feelings. It eats when it feels like eating, works when it feels like working, speaks when it feels like speaking, rests when it feels like resting. But the disciplined mind can act with wisdom rather than impulse. It can decide when to speak and when to remain silent. It can choose when to push forward and when to rest with intention, not laziness. In moments when the mood is low, discipline becomes a form of self-respect. You are telling yourself, my commitments are more important than my temporary discomfort. And in moments when the mood is high, discipline becomes a form of humility, reminding you that consistency matters more than bursts of effort. This habit is not built in grand, dramatic moments. It is built in small, quiet choices made daily. Waking up at the time you said you would, even when the bed feels warm. Finishing the workout you planned, even when the body feels heavy. Sticking to the budget you set, even when the temptation to spend is strong. These moments may seem insignificant in isolation, but they are threads that weave together into the fabric of your character. There is also a danger in believing that you must feel ready to act. Readiness is a luxury that discipline cannot afford. If you wait until you feel like doing something, you will find yourself waiting forever. The disciplined person acts not because the timing feels perfect, but because the commitment demands it. They understand that action itself can create the mood they were waiting for. In ancient traditions, warriors trained daily not only for physical strength, but for mental command over their emotions. They knew that in the middle of battle, there is no time to consult your feelings. You must act according to training, not according to mood. Life is not so different. There will be moments when circumstances demand your best, yet your mood offers you nothing. In these moments, discipline becomes the bridge that carries you across. To live this way requires preparation. You cannot rely on willpower alone. Willpower fades under fatigue and stress. Discipline is built through systems and rituals that remove the need for constant decision-making. You prepare your clothes the night before so that when morning comes, there is no debate. You schedule your deep work hours and protect them like an appointment with someone you respect. You create an environment where the path of discipline is easier to follow than the path of mood. Over time, something shifts. The tasks you once resisted become automatic. You stop asking yourself, "Do I feel like it today?" and start asking, "What is the next step?" This shift frees enormous mental energy because you are no longer trapped in constant internal negotiation. That energy can be used for creativity, problem solving, or simply living more fully in the present moment. Yet, the greatest benefit of discipline over mood is not in what you accomplish, but in who you become. Each choice to follow through strengthens your identity as someone who can be trusted. And when you can trust yourself, the fear of challenge diminishes. You know that no matter how unpredictable your emotions may be, your actions will remain aligned with your principles. A boundary is not a wall to keep the world out. It is a doorway that allows the right people and the right energies to enter, while keeping out what would damage the peace you have worked to build. Boundaries are often misunderstood. Some think they are selfish, some think they are harsh, but in truth, they are one of the purest expressions of self-respect. They are the way you say to yourself and to the world, "This is how I expect to be treated, and this is how I will treat myself." When boundaries are absent, life becomes crowded with demands, noise, and obligations that do not belong to you. Without boundaries, you will give away your time to those who do not value it, your energy to those who do not replenish it, and your kindness to those who mistake it for weakness. Over time, resentment grows. Not because others have taken from you, but because you have allowed it without limit. A high-value person understands that boundaries are not a form of cruelty. They are a form of clarity. They make it known what is acceptable and what is not to control others, but to protect the environment in which they can thrive. Just as a garden needs fences to protect it from being trampled, your life needs lines that define where your responsibility ends and where another's begins. To set a boundary is not simply to say no. It is to live in alignment with your values. If you value peace, you cannot invite chaos into your daily life and expect to remain calm. If you value growth, you cannot keep company with those who pull you backward and still hope to move forward. Boundaries are a daily choice. The choice to act in accordance with what matters most to you. Boundaries are also deeply connected to self-awareness. You cannot protect what you have not defined. If you do not know your own needs, your own triggers, your own limits, you will not know when they are being crossed. This is why boundaries begin with observation. Notice how you feel after spending time with certain people. Notice what situations leave you drained. Notice the patterns in which your time disappears without any real return. Each of these observations is a clue, guiding you toward the lines you need to draw. Many avoid setting boundaries because they fear losing relationships. But relationships built on the absence of boundaries are not truly safe or sustainable. If your connection with someone depends on you never expressing your needs, it is not a connection. It is a silent agreement to abandon yourself for the sake of their comfort. A true bond will survive boundaries. In fact, it will grow stronger because of them, for boundaries create mutual respect. They clarify the space in which both people can give and receive freely without stepping on each other's dignity. There is also a misunderstanding that boundaries are fixed forever. In reality, they evolve as you evolve. A boundary that was necessary for you in one season may no longer be needed in another, and new ones may emerge as you grow. This flexibility does not mean weakness. It means you are aware enough to adjust your life according to your current truth. But while boundaries can change the principle behind them, self-respect remains constant. It is not enough to set boundaries in words alone. They must be upheld through consistent action. If you say you will not accept a certain behavior but allow it repeatedly, you have taught others that your boundaries are only suggestions. Enforcement is what gives boundaries their power. And enforcement often comes with discomfort. The discomfort of saying no, when it would be easier to say yes. The discomfort of ending a relationship that continually disrespects your limits. The discomfort of walking away from opportunities that ask you to compromise your principles. But this discomfort is temporary. The alternative, a life without boundaries, is a slow erosion of self-respect. Every time you accept something that goes against your values, you are telling yourself, my peace is negotiable, my worth is flexible. Over time, this belief seeps into every part of your life, and you begin to question why you feel so disconnected from yourself. Boundaries are not only about what you keep out, they are also about what you make space for. When you stop allowing energy that drains you, you create room for energy that uplifts you. When you refuse to be spoken to with disrespect, you create room for conversations filled with understanding and care. When you protect your time, you create room to invest it in what truly matters. This is why boundaries are not barriers to love or connection. They are the very conditions that allow them to flourish. It is also worth understanding that some will resist your boundaries, especially if they benefited from you having none. They may accuse you of being distant, selfish, or unkind. This resistance is not proof that your boundaries are wrong. It is proof that they are working. Those who value you will adapt, even if it takes time. Those who do not will fall away. And though it may feel like loss, it is in truth a clearing, making space for relationships that honor the mutual exchange of respect. Practicing boundaries is a skill. At first, it may feel unnatural, especially if you are used to placing others' needs before your own. But like any skill, it grows stronger with practice. Start small, decline one request that would stretch you too thin, step away from one conversation that drains your energy, speak up once when a line is crossed. Each of these moments is a brick in the foundation of your self-respect. The deeper your self-respect becomes, the more natural it will feel to protect it. You will begin to notice that boundaries are not a constant struggle or negotiation. They are simply part of the way you move through the world. You will say no without guilt, yes without obligation, and enough without hesitation. You will not need to explain every decision, because your life will speak for itself through the patterns you allow and the patterns you refuse. There is a great mistake many people make. They believe that growth is a one-time event, something that happens after reading a single book, attending a single retreat, or having a single moment of insight. They imagine that once they have reached a certain level of understanding, they can rest there forever. But growth does not work this way. Just as the body needs daily nourishment and movement, the mind and the spirit require constant tending. Without this, even the strongest foundation begins to weaken. Continuous inner work is the understanding that the self is never truly finished. It is the decision to remain a student of life, no matter how much you think you already know. It is a discipline, a way of living in which you are always observing, learning, refining, and adjusting. And it is not always comfortable, because true inner work requires honesty. And honesty often reveals truths we would rather avoid. To work on yourself continuously means to turn inward before pointing outward. It is easy to believe that the source of your frustrations, fears, or failures is external. But when you have committed to inner work, you begin to see the patterns within yourself that shape your reality. You notice the reactions that repeat themselves in different situations, the insecurities that resurface under pressure, the doubts that echo the same words year after year. This awareness is not meant to create shame. It is meant to create clarity. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Inner work is not a single practice. It is a collection of small, daily disciplines that feed your mind, strengthen your heart, and anchor your spirit. For some, it is meditation, the act of sitting in silence and observing the restless flow of thought until the mind begins to quiet. For others, it is journaling, pouring out the contents of the mind onto paper so that tangled thoughts can be seen clearly. It can be reading, studying the wisdom of those who came before you, allowing their words to challenge and shape your perspective. It can be physical training, not just to strengthen the body, but to discipline the mind through movement and effort. And there is another form of inner work, one that is often overlooked, the work of stillness. In a world that moves quickly, stillness can feel unproductive, but stillness is where you meet yourself without distraction. It is where you hear the truths that the noise of daily life drowns out. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is the presence of awareness. Continuous inner work also means facing the parts of yourself that are uncomfortable to acknowledge. Every person carries shadows, beliefs, fears, and desires that they would rather keep hidden. These shadows do not disappear simply because they are ignored. In fact, they grow stronger in the dark. The disciplined person turns toward them with courage, asking, "What is this teaching me? What part of me needs healing here?" This process is not easy, but it is the path to freedom, for the parts of yourself you refuse to confront will quietly control you. This work is not only about healing what is broken. It is also about strengthening what is already good. A calm mind can become calmer. A generous heart can become more generous. A focused spirit can become sharper. Too often, people stop working on themselves once they feel good enough. But mastery comes only through continual refinement. The archer does not stop practicing because he has hit the target once. He keeps training until hitting the target is no longer the exception, but the natural result of his skill. Continuous inner work requires patience because results are often invisible at first. You may practice self-control for weeks before you notice that you are less reactive in an argument. You may meditate for months before you feel a deep sense of stillness. You may read and reflect daily without any obvious change, until one day you face a challenge that would have broken you before and you handle it with calm clarity. The transformation is often silent, but it is always taking place. There will be days when you do not feel like doing the work. This is when discipline becomes essential. Inner work is not only for the days when inspiration is strong. It is also for the days when inspiration is absent. Skipping a single day may not seem significant, but habits are fragile in their early stages. Each time you show up for your practice, you strengthen the identity of someone who invests in themselves, and that identity is what carries you forward when motivation fades. It is also important to remember that inner work is not done in isolation from the outer world. The goal is not to sit in perfect self-awareness while life passes by untouched. The goal is to carry the fruits of your inner work into your relationships, your decisions, and your actions. The patience you cultivate in meditation should appear when you are stuck in traffic. The compassion you develop in reflection should appear when someone makes a mistake. The focus you build in training should appear when you are pursuing your goals. In truth, continuous inner work is a form of respect for your potential, for the person you are becoming, and for the life you have been given. It acknowledges that while you cannot control everything outside of you, you can shape the way you meet it. And this shaping is not a one-time event, but a lifelong process. The seasons of life will test the work you have done. There will be winters of difficulty, summers of ease, springs of new beginnings, and autumns of letting go. Each season will require something different from you, and if you have neglected your inner work, you will feel unprepared. But if you have been steady, even in the smallest of ways, you will find that you have built an inner strength that can adapt to whatever comes. Words are powerful tools. They can build bridges or burn them. They can heal a wound or deepen it. They can bring clarity to a situation or wrap it in confusion. The way a person uses words says more about their inner state than it does about their vocabulary. Grace in communication is the art of speaking with intention, precision, and respect, regardless of the emotional weather within or around you. Grace does not mean weakness, nor does it mean avoiding truth. It is not the habit of staying silent when words are needed, nor the act of softening every message until it loses its meaning. Grace is the ability to speak with honesty without cruelty, to express truth without arrogance, and to deliver even difficult messages in a way that preserves dignity, both yours and the listener's. To communicate with grace, one must first learn the discipline of listening. Listening is not the passive act of waiting for your turn to speak. It is the active choice to give your full attention to another person's words, tone, and underlying meaning. Most people listen only to respond, not to understand. Graceful communication begins when you stop trying to win every conversation and start trying to truly hear. When you listen deeply, Your words naturally become more measured because they are shaped by a fuller understanding of the other person's perspective. There is a certain stillness required to speak with grace. If you allow your emotions to govern your speech in the heat of the moment, words will often escape that you cannot take back. You may feel the temporary satisfaction of having spoken your mind, but that satisfaction fades when you see the damage left behind. Grace requires a pause, a space between what you feel and what you say. In that space, you choose the response that aligns not with your mood, but with your values. A person with grace in communication understands that tone often speaks louder than the words themselves. The same sentence can land as a compliment or an insult, depending on how it is delivered. This is why awareness of your tone, facial expression, and body language is just as important as awareness of your vocabulary. Communication is a complete picture. Words are only one part of it. There is also a responsibility in grace, the responsibility to choose clarity over cleverness. Many speak in ways designed to impress, using words like ornaments to decorate a message that could have been simple. But communication is not about showing how much you know. It is about ensuring the message is understood. To speak with grace is to remove unnecessary complexity, to say enough without saying too much, and to leave no room for harmful misinterpretation. Grace in communication does not mean you will always be gentle, it means you will always be intentional. Sometimes, the most graceful thing you can do is to be firm. There are moments when a boundary must be stated clearly, when a truth must be delivered directly, when a line must be drawn without apology. Grace is what allows firmness without hostility, so that the strength of your message is not diluted by unnecessary aggression. It is also important to recognize that silence is part of communication. There are times when no response is the most powerful response. Silence can show restraint. It can signal that a matter is not worth your energy, and it can prevent a situation from escalating unnecessarily. Grace means knowing when to speak and when to let the moment pass untouched. To cultivate grace in your words, you must cultivate grace in your thoughts. What you say flows from what you think. If your inner dialogue is full of judgment, resentment, and impatience, it will eventually spill into your speech. But if your inner dialogue is calm, curious, and respectful, your communication will naturally reflect it. This is why grace in communication is not only about techniques or strategies. It is about the ongoing inner work of shaping your mind into a place where gracious thoughts can grow. One of the greatest signs of grace in speech is the ability to disagree without disrespect. Disagreement is natural, disrespect is a choice. A person with grace can challenge an idea without attacking the person who holds it. They can present their perspective without making the other feel small or foolish. This not only keeps the conversation productive, but it also creates an environment where people feel safe to express themselves honestly, which in turn deepens trust. Grace in communication is also about timing. The right message delivered at the wrong time often misses its mark. If someone is overwhelmed with emotion, they may not be able to hear your words clearly, no matter how well you choose them. Patience in delivery can be as important as precision in wording. Knowing when to speak and when to wait is a skill that transforms not just conversations, but relationships. When you practice grace consistently, people begin to notice that conversations with you feel different. They may not be able to name it, but they feel heard, they feel respected, and they feel less defensive. This is because grace has a disarming quality. It lowers tension and opens the door to mutual understanding. Even in moments of conflict, grace allows space for resolution instead of escalation. Grace in communication is not an act you put on in public and remove in private. It must be consistent in all areas of life, with strangers as well as loved ones, in casual exchanges as well as important discussions. Practicing grace only when it benefits you is not grace at all, it is strategy. True grace is an expression of character, not convenience. Over time, this way of communicating becomes less about effort and more about identity. You stop thinking about how to speak with grace and simply begin to speak that way naturally, because it is who you have become. And as your speech changes, so does the way the world responds to you. Doors open that were once closed, conflicts resolved that once dragged on, and the respect you show in your words returns to you in the respect you receive. A life without purpose drifts. It moves from one distraction to another, chasing moments of comfort but never finding lasting fulfillment. Purpose is what gives structure to the days and meaning to the years. It is the guiding star that allows you to navigate through confusion, setbacks, and temptation without losing your way. Living with purpose is not about constantly achieving monumental goals or forcing every moment to be grand. It is about having a clear sense of direction, knowing why you do what you do and aligning your actions with that. Why? Even when no one is watching. Without this anchor, the mind becomes restless, the heart becomes scattered, and life begins to feel like a series of random events rather than a coherent journey. Purpose-driven living begins with self-examination. You must ask difficult questions. What truly matters to me? What am I willing to sacrifice for? What do I want my life to stand for? Many avoid these questions because the answers can be uncomfortable. They may reveal that much of their time and energy has been spent on things that do not matter in the long run. But without these answers, you cannot live with intention. You can only react to whatever appears before you. When you have clarity of purpose, decisions become easier. The question is no longer simply, do I want to do this? But rather, does this serve my purpose? This shift changes everything. You stop chasing opportunities simply because they are available, and you start choosing only those that are aligned with your deeper mission. You say no without guilt because you understand that every yes to something misaligned is a no to what truly matters. Living with purpose also changes your relationship with time. When you know where you are headed, you become more protective of your hours. You begin to notice how much energy is wasted on trivial matters. Arguments that lead nowhere. Gossip that drains your spirit. Entertainment that numbs rather than enriches. Purpose-driven living does not mean you eliminate rest or joy, but it means your rest is intentional, your joy is meaningful, and your distractions are chosen with awareness rather than by habit. Purpose has the power to transform struggle. Without purpose, difficulty feels like punishment. With purpose, difficulty becomes training. The challenges you face are no longer meaningless obstacles. They are shaping you into the person you need to be to fulfill your mission. A clear purpose gives you the strength to endure discomfort because you understand that the pain of growth is far less than the pain of regret. But purpose is not found once and kept forever. It is discovered in layers, refined by experience, and deepened over time. The purpose you have in one season of life may evolve in the next. This is not inconsistency. It is growth. As you learn more about yourself and the world, your purpose may expand or shift to match your current capacity and understanding. The key is to remain committed to living with intention, even as the form of that intention changes. Purpose-driven living also requires that your daily actions reflect your larger vision. It is not enough to hold an inspiring idea in your mind. It must be expressed in how you move through the world. If your purpose is to create, then create daily. If your purpose is to serve, then serve daily. If your purpose is to learn, then learn daily. Big visions are built through small, consistent steps, not occasional bursts of effort. Another element of living with purpose is the courage to stand apart from the crowd when necessary. The world will often try to pull you toward its trends, its distractions, its shallow measures of success. If your purpose is clear, you will sometimes find yourself taking a path that others do not understand. They may question your choices, doubt your direction, or try to convince you to follow theirs. A person driven by purpose does not need the world's constant approval. They need only the quiet assurance that they are walking the path they have chosen. Living with purpose also means aligning with values that do not shift based on convenience. In moments of temptation, your values become your guardrails. They keep you from making choices that would damage the integrity of your mission. A purpose built without values is easily abandoned. A purpose rooted in values becomes a lifelong compass. Purpose-driven living does not mean life becomes easy. In fact, it often brings greater challenges because you will be aiming higher, stretching further, and refusing to settle for what is merely comfortable. But it also brings a deeper form of satisfaction, the kind that cannot be bought, imitated, or taken away. This satisfaction comes from knowing that your days are spent in alignment with something larger than yourself. There will be moments when your purpose feels distant, when the work feels endless and the results invisible. In these moments, discipline becomes your ally. You continue not because you feel inspired, but because you have made a commitment to live in alignment with your mission. Purpose is not measured only in feelings of passion. It is measured in the quiet persistence of showing up every day for what you have decided matters most. Purpose-driven living also affects how you relate to others. You choose your company more carefully, gravitating toward those whose values and energy support your mission. You become less interested in shallow connections and more invested in relationships that challenge, inspire, and encourage you to stay on your path. Purpose is not only personal, it is relational. The people around you can either strengthen or weaken your commitment to it. And perhaps one of the greatest effects of living with purpose is the way it shapes your legacy. Whether or not you think about it often, every action you take leaves a mark. A life lived without purpose leaves behind scattered pieces, forgotten quickly. A life lived with purpose leaves behind patterns, examples, and changes that ripple outward long after you are gone.